Okay, let's unpack this. If you are involved in any type of highly committed, tightly knit group, I'm thinking a specialized business team, a community organization, maybe a faith community, you know that internal friction is, well, it's not just likely, it's inevitable.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the fundamental challenge of human collective action, isn't it?
Right. You might feel like you're fighting a dozen different brush fires every week. You know, disagreements over budgets, personality clashes, or even public embarrassment.
We bring all our individual insecurities, our past traumas, and just our baggage into that shared space.
And it all starts bumping into each other.
Exactly. It's completely natural.
Well, the sources we received today took a really deep dive into the historical roots of that conflict. Specifically, they looked at the dynamics of the early church as it was documented in the biblical book of James.
And our mission for this deep dive is very focused. Our listener wants to bypass all those symptoms you just mentioned and really grasp the complex human dynamics at play.
To find that single thread.
Yes. To identify the single underlying thread that links all these seemingly separate problems together.
Yeah.
What is the one core failure that shows up as conflict, as social bias, as crippling hypocrisy in any group?
And the sources, they deliver a diagnosis that's, I'd say it's controversial, but only because it's so simple and so clarifying.
It cuts right through the noise.
It does. They argue that all these complex community issues, from, internal power struggles to flagrant social bias, they don't stem from external pressure. They stem from one crucial shared failure.
A lack of spiritual maturity.
Or, to put it even more simply, an unwillingness by the people in the group to just grow up.
The analysis we have suggests that when a person or a whole group fails to meet life's challenges with endurance, they just revert back to self-interest.
It all comes back to the individual.
Yes, it's a failure of individuals within the group to mature enough to handle difficulty and to handle each other with grace.
Let's pull the curtain back on the historical context here, because this isn't some, abstract theological document we're talking about.
Not at all.
The letter of James was basically an internal memo, a brutal point-by-point inventory of deeply uncomfortable, really specific community problems.
Imagine getting a company-wide email that wasn't about next quarter's projections.
But was a list of everybody's worst workplace habits.
Right, that's what this feels like. And what's so remarkable is that the patterns are timeless. The friction points of the first century are the exact same ones we see today.
In board meetings, in sports clubs.
Any volunteer organization, it's the same stuff.
Okay, so let's start with the most uncomfortable pattern mentioned. This massive social and economic friction. Our sources note that members were actively favoring the rich, catering to them, maybe, giving them the best seats or the most public praise.
And it wasn't just passive deference. It wasn't just being starstruck.
No.
The sources point out that the rich people being catered to were often the very same people who were actively exploiting the poorer members of that same community.
Through things like
usury, maybe debt, unfair employment practices. It's an internal stratification, a hierarchy so deep it threatens to tear the whole group apart on just basic moral grounds.
Wait a minute. If the group is supposed to be founded on shared values, love, unity, that kind of thing, how did they rationalize honoring the oppressors while ignoring the oppressed in their own ranks?
That is the precise conflict the author of the letter is highlighting.
That seems like an unbelievable moral compromise.
It is. They lack the maturity to resist the gravitational pull of the outside culture, where, wealth equals status.
So they were importing the world's values into their own community.
Exactly. They were applying the priorities of the marketplace to their internal relationships, and they were prioritizing temporary social status over their own permanent shared principles. That contradiction is the first big visible sign of the core disease.
And that internal stratification, that hierarchy, it leads directly to internal competition.
Of course.
The source material notes that church members were openly contending for positions, specifically teaching roles.
Right, which sounds exactly like modern corporate ladder climbing or, running for a spot on the board.
It's the ego manifesting.
That's it. When individuals are insecure, they seek validation through status and power within the group structure. They start seeing roles, especially influential ones, like teaching as prizes to be won.
Not as responsibilities to be served.
Not at all. And the analysis connects this directly to the internal warfare and strikes that follows.
Well, if they're fighting over who gets to speak, it seems pretty clear that the way they speak is probably the problem.
Absolutely. The source identifies the tongue, or speech, as a major cause of this division. Insecurity often translates into sarcasm, into criticism, into gossip.
Anything that lifts you up by pushing someone else down.
Precisely.
And then we see the other major behavioral disconnect. Just plain old hypocrisy. This was a huge problem. People weren't living out what they claimed to believe.
They had the right words, the right concepts.
But zero follow-through in their daily actions, especially towards their own peers.
And the symptom list just keeps going. We see worldliness, disobedience to the group's own guiding principles, and even fragmentation, where members were just deviating from the main body.
You know, the analysis also mentioned that the original author treated physical sickness as just another symptom in this whole collection of community problems.
Yeah, viewing it potentially as a consequence of their collective spiritual and moral failures.
So you have this devastating list. Favoritism, infighting, political maneuvering, deep hypocrisy, and people just walking away. You look at that and you'd naturally think, okay, this community has 10 different independent problems to solve.
And what's fascinating, this is the key insight from the sources, is that the author argues the exact opposite.
That these are not unconnected.
Not at all. They stress that these are all expressions of the same underlying condition. They all share what the source calls a common noise.
So if the symptoms are favoritism and fighting, what's the single diagnosis? What is that common noise?
The central proposition is that the failure to accept internal trials or difficulties, to endure them and wait for the positive outcome, that failure leads directly to a profound lack of spiritual growth.
So the common root problem is spiritual immaturity.
Yes, the individual's inability or maybe unwillingness to mature into their potential. They just react to pain rather than processing it and growing through it.
Okay, but hold on. How do we distinguish between, say, impatience with suffering and a necessary urgency to fix a real injustice, like the economic exploitation we talked about?
That's a critical distinction.
Yeah, doesn't this diagnosis risk letting people off the hook for failing to act?
That's a great question. The source analysis clarifies that maturity isn't about being passive. It's about where the reaction comes from.
Okay.
Immaturity reacts out of ego, out of self-preservation, and a desire for immediate comfort. And that leads to favoritism or lashing out. But maturity endures the trial, the difficulty of doing the right thing, even when it's painful, in a way that aligns with the group's highest principles.
I see. So instead of reacting to hardship with ego or bitterness or political maneuvering, the mature person is meant to grow through the hardship.
Precisely. And the source points right back to James 1.4 to define this solution. The whole theme of the letter is the mark of a mature life, and the key element is patience or endurance.
And the text says patience is essential to achieve maturity and completeness, to be not lacking anything.
That's the phrase.
What does that complete it? Not lacking anything. What does that mean practically for you, the listener, today?
I mean, you can think of it as total functional integrity. If you're lacking patience, you will lack self-control.
Okay.
If you lack self-control, you will lack consistency. If you lack consistency, you will lack trust from others.
It's a chain reaction.
It is. The sources argue that when patience is perfected, the person is whole, they're integrated, and they're ready to face any situation without reverting to those childish, self-serving tactics. Their character is fully formed.
Which makes them, I guess, impervious to the temptation of hypocrisy or contention. So if the underlying disease is immaturity, then the public consequences, especially hypocrisy, become massive.
Oh, absolutely. Immaturity results in pretense, the act of covering up your internal flaws with an external performance. And the source material is really clear that the outside world genuinely dislikes that.
Whether as a politician or a community leader.
Right. The moment there's a disconnect between what you say your ideals are and your private behavior, all trust is lost.
It sounds incredibly difficult to do any kind of outreach or recruiting when you've got that level of internal disconnect.
It's a huge barrier. The source likened this hypocrisy to the way the original author of the letter criticized the religious leaders of his day.
People who knew the rules.
They knew the law perfectly. They followed the whole external compliance checklist, but they failed to show genuine love or meaningful action. And when what you say and what you do don't align, communication is, well, it's rendered impossible.
And in the modern era, that failure is immediately amplified. This is where the sources gave a really specific, vivid analogy for our networked world.
The speed of scandal.
Yeah, the quote is almost hauntingly relevant. It's, "Good deeds don't leave the house, bad deeds travel 1,000 miles.
And that perfectly captures the risk profile of immaturity today.
It's the viral nature of ethical failure, right?
Right.
A single act of self-serving favoritism, a single hypocritical comment in an online meeting can just negate weeks of quiet, consistent good work.
Because that bad deed goes viral instantly, even if it's just within your company's Slack channel or your social network.
Which leads right back to the danger of the tongue, which the source emphasizes over and over.
Heavily. When information flows this fast, things like gossip, careless joking, cynical satire, they cause immediate visible harm.
The sources stress that what one person considers an innocuous joke
Or gossip.
is another person's painful place. And this is how the immaturity of just one person quickly leads to devastation and conflict for the entire group.
When you lack the maturity of self-control, your speech defaults to being a weapon of frustration or sarcasm, not a tool for encouragement.
It feels easy and immediate to be critical.
It does. And the source is clear. To stop the fighting, to stop the stratification, you have to start with the mouth. If immaturity is the disease, then the solution requires a profound, ongoing treatment plan, one that involves rigorous self-discipline.
So what does that path to real maturity look like, according to the sources? How do you go from being an ego-driven reactor to a mature, unified contributor?
The source material is very clear that the change process isn't temporary, it's not reactive. It has to be a daily commitment.
Every single day.
Every day. It requires honest self-reflection and consistent character building, guided by your foundational principles. They stress that positive habits have to grow slowly, step by step, like planting a seed and tending it every single day.
So it's about slow, daily increments, not waiting for some overnight lightning strike transformation. I mean, frankly, that sounds exhausting.
It can be challenging, but the focus shifts when you anchor it in identity. The source reminds members to act as servants, servants of their ideals, servants of their community.
And that identity changes everything.
It does. It emphasizes reverence, purity, and self-control. When you genuinely internalize the identity of a servant, your priorities shift entirely away from contending for power or status. You just stop worrying about who gets the credit.
That's the radical shift. That's what counters the power struggles we had identified earlier. If you're a servant, you're not arguing for the teaching role.
You're arguing for who gets to clean the dirty dishes.
Exactly.
And this identity is what translates into group unity. When members start maturing daily, when they start embodying that idea of servanthood, the community becomes unified through these specific, counterintuitive actions.
Okay, tell us what those actions look like in practice.
Well, maturity means you become willing to sacrifice your time, your energy, your resources, without being quick to calculate or argue about what you deserve in return.
So volunteering for the unglamorous job behind the scenes instead of maneuvering for the spotlight.
Precisely. A mature perspective also involves a radical self-subordination, seeing others as stronger or better than yourself.
That's a massive internal shift that requires you to actively suppress your own ego and ambition for the good of the group.
It's the ultimate antidote to infighting. Instead of competing for attention, you look for opportunities to serve anonymously, to offer comfort. You control your mouth.
And you replace that default critical, frustrating, or sarcastic language
with sincere encouragement and comfort.
So the goal is to systematically stop being a source of pain and division and to become a consistent source of strength and unity.
Yes. The ultimate objective that's outlined in the source is to become a person of true faith, consistently acting as angels of love in both the visible actions and in those unseen daily interactions. That is the complete and mature individual who no longer contributes to the internal friction.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've uncovered the single shared issue, this spiritual immaturity that creates friction, hierarchy, hypocrisy, and conflict in any group setting. And the key to overcoming it is daily, incremental growth and the disciplined control of your speech and your ego. All of it driven by endurance and self-reflection.
True repentance, the sources seem to imply, isn't a single emotional event. It's a commitment to letting those positive habits of maturity grow slowly over time.
It's a process.
It's a process, not a destination, and it requires patience.
The source material concludes by offering 3 reflective questions that build on everything we've just discussed. It's a real call to personal action that goes way beyond the historical context. So we'll leave these with you to consider as you reflect on your own journey within your own communities.
The first question is, on a scale from low to high, where would you assess your current level of maturity within your primary community or professional setting? And be honest about your tendency to react out of frustration.
Question 2. Reflecting on your life 1 year ago, what specific trackable progress or maturity have you made since then in controlling your tongue or in eliminating self-serving hypocrisy?
And finally, question 3. How essential do you truly find patience for developing maturity? We discussed how it leads to that completeness, but what active steps are you taking today to cultivate endurance when trials or conflicts arise?
Because understanding and applying that relationship between patience and completeness, that's the key to unlocking true growth.